Welcome. Today we are going to chat about the 5 most underrated movies of all time because technologically advanced explosions and a $300 million budget does not a great movie make. You're listening to Open Here, a podcast produced by Pack TV. I'm Tiff Phillips. Let's get started. Hi friends, hope all is well and wonderful. Today we are going to discuss some really amazing movies that you may or may not have heard of. I guess I just feel like being that hipster guy that's like, I liked that movie before it was cool. The question is, why celebrate underrated movies? Well, sometimes smaller films get outshined by these big, fancy blockbusters that distract you with their famous faces and beautiful costumes and their high-end technology, and sometimes you just want to celebrate a great plot with some memorable characters. And let me preface this by saying I am just a wee 30-something old, so my scope of time might be a little bit different than yours. I'm not saying I'm not well-versed in older movies, I'm just saying my preference is 80s and onward, so this is just my take. Feel free to create your own list and tell me I'm wrong, but for now, let me state my case. Number 1, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. What happens when a slightly irresponsible single mom decides to take a trip and leave her teenish children with a super old babysitter, and then the babysitter dies? Well, of course, you probably guessed what happens next. The oldest, a 16-year-old girl, lies about her age, gets a job at a clothing company, excels at a job she has no idea how to do, and hilarity ensues. Starring a young Christina Applegate at the height of her Married with Children days and a slew of other cast members that will make you check your IMDb to see where else you've seen them, this dark comedy is a mix of risky business and working girl with a tone of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It was panned by critics and made pennies at the box office, but it has become a cult classic over the years for its catchy lines like, "I'm right on top of that, Rose," and "Dishes are done, man." The clothes are also pretty amazing too, mixing all of the wild colors and patterns and puffiness the 90s had to offer. But most importantly, it's the moral of this little picture that gets me. That family is forever and anyone can turn any situation around given enough smarts and perseverance. Even a 16-year-old who tries to take care of her family by committing identity fraud. I mean, to be fair, I could barely do my laundry at 16, so points for trying. Number 2, Adventures in Babysitting. And at this point, you're probably like, is this list going to be babysitter related? No, that's just a silly coincidence. But even though it's not on the list, that Babysitters Club movie from the 90s was pretty good. But I digress. I'll give you a little synopsis. A teen girl named Chris gets the blow-off for a date with her boyfriend and is asked to babysit a few teens/tweens for the night. It should be a really quiet night, but no, things get weird. Chris's ridiculously high-strung friend calls her and lets her know that she's regrettably run away to the city and is now stuck. Feeling a sense of misguided loyalty, Chris kinda sorta recklessly takes the kids into the city where they blow a tire and you guessed it, have an adventure. What's likable about this 80s classic is the plot. Straight up, although it is a product of the 80s, it definitely sets itself apart from the John Hughes Brat Pack kind of archetypes you get from this decade. There's no high school stereotypes or will the boy from the wrong side of the tracks end up with the popular cheerleader type plot lines. No, it's an epic odyssey that makes you think, oh no, what else is going to happen to these kids? But I think the most likable thing about this movie is that it has a lot of heart. The characters are flawed and likable and real and care about each other. And at the end of the day, who doesn't love a movie that makes you feel good? Number 3, Empire Records. So we've had some fun with comedy. Let's try some dark comedy/drama. Have you ever heard of Empire Records? If you grew up in the 90s, you probably have come across watching it on your 2-day free trial of HBO that your parents told you not to watch. That's okay. I won't tell. Empire Records was a 90s coming-of-age film about a group of younger adults who work at a record store they're trying to save from big business. The movie takes place in a 24-hour time period and examines the lives of each character and how thoroughly unhappy they are. Although it was a complete and utter flop at the movie theaters and gets a bad rap in general, it was actually pretty good. There are a few things you will like about this film. One being that the young actors are pretty much all famous now. Liv Tyler, Anthony LaPaglia, Robin Tunney, and even a wicked young Renee Zellweger. So yeah, again, get your IMDb out because you're going to want to do some star searching. Seeing as the movie takes place in a record store, the music serves as a character in its own right. It is indeed the 90th track you will ever hear, with songs from The Cranberries, Gin Blossoms, Luster, and Better Than Ezra. The songs are moody and angsty and rockin', and this soundtrack will be sure to take you back to your flannel and ripped jeans days. I'm still there, but yeah, not all of us can move on. Finally, the movie really hits the coming of age part on the head. Each character is dealing with some pretty serious issues, but in a way that doesn't make you feel hopeless. They own their junk and they just do the best they can to get by. Robin Tooney's character, Deborah, for example, is going through a crippling depression and is suicidal, so she shaves her head. In this iconic scene, she's trying to take back her power in a world that sometimes makes you feel powerless. 'Tis an issue that many of us can relate to, and Deborah represents those of us that experience the tougher side of life and can come out on the other side. Number 4, Dazed and Confused. Speaking of movies that take place over the course of a day, we have the one, the only, Dazed and Confused. A 70s movie filmed in the 90s that basically is a slice of life in the American teenager at the time. Taking place after the last day of high school in a small town in Texas, the film follows a bunch of teenagers while they drive around, guzzle beer, smoke, and exchange their teenage life lessons and truths. It sounds like it could be boring, but honestly, give it a chance. It will surprise you. First, you'll get to see the baby faces of some pretty famous peeps like Ben Affleck, Parker Posey, and Matthew McConaughey. You'll probably end up hating Ben Affleck, but it's Batman, so you can't really be angry at him for too long. Then you'll go crazy over the soundtrack. It's like a big slice of 70s pie right in your mouth or in your ear. I don't really know where I was going with that, but yeah, the music is stuff that dreams are made of. Aerosmith, Alice Cooper, ZZ Top, Leonard Skinner, and Kiss. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like Empire Records, the music is basically another character in the movie, maybe even the best one. I'll let you be the judge. The one-nighter will take you back to an age that was a lot simpler, yet so complicated, no matter what decade you grew up in. Like, remember the days when you didn't have to plan the night, that you just let the night do what it needed to do? Well, maybe this movie will inspire you to have more of those nights. Number 5, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? OMG. If you have never watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit, stop what you're doing, search one of your 17 streaming services that you subscribe to, and watch this amazing piece of art. Although it is a cult classic in its own right, it's kind of the redheaded stepchild of Disney movies. No offense to redheaded stepchildren, you just keep doing you. An odd mix of film noir and animation, this wonderfully off-putting acid trip of a movie was the first time that live action and cartoons came together extensively. It was revolutionary. Like, really, no one had thought about this before. Let me brief you on the plot. You see, a kind of down-on-his-luck, slightly alcoholic private eye gets a job from a cartoon producer to investigate a potential affair between Jessica Rabbit, the wife of a big-time cartoon actor, Roger Rabbit, and the landlord of a place called Toontown. That guy is found murdered, and it's up to the private eye to find out, well, who framed Roger Rabbit. So many things to love about this movie. First, I have to say that this movie has one of the best examples of suspension of disbelief of all time. I mean, you forget these characters are cartoons. It's like the Muppets. I forget they're not real. Like, if I met Kermit the Frog, I would probably fangirl until I died. Furthermore, the actors in this movie, let me gush. Bob Hoskins, the Shakespearean English award-winning actor, nails this role as Eddie Valiant, the private eye. He really gets into the 40s gritty role and makes it his own. And really, can we talk about Christopher Lloyd? He plays Judge Doom, the evil villain out for cartoon blood. That dude can play a coffee table, and I believe it. Finally, although this movie has some pep in its step and is a comedy with, yes, cartoons, it's completely sociological. The film tackles such themes as racial inequality, systematic discrimination, etc. The animated characters, not so affectionately called toons, are second-class citizens. They often work under unfair labor practices and are often poor and live in segregated areas. Roger is probably the most emblematic of this, as his sense of value is to entertain in an industry that has been forced upon him. Roger symbolizes the Louis Armstrongs, the Billie Holidays of the world, who were used and abused for their talents and then sent out to pasture. So yeah, this silly movie about cartoons actually meant something and should be appreciated for the wonderful masterpiece that it is. So you've heard my spiel. The moral of this episode, even though critics aren't raving about it and your friends haven't heard of it, give the movies a try. Art is completely subjective, and you're allowed to like what you like. And who knows, maybe you'll find something amazing out there that will open your eyes and move you. You've been listening to Open Here, a podcast produced by the local scene of Plymouth Area Community Television. PAC-TV is the community media provider for the Massachusetts towns of Plymouth, Pembroke, Kingston, and Duxbury. To see more of our content, visit pactv.org/thelocalscene. I'm Tiff Phillips. Thanks for tuning in. Let's hang out again soon. Hi friends, if you like this video by The Local Scene, share the love and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe.